The fluorescent light in my garage flickered like my fading marriage, on, off, on again, casting harsh shadows across the oil-stained concrete. I was flat on my back under Mrs. Henderson's ancient Buick at 11:30 on a Tuesday night, wrench in hand, when I heard my wife's voice cut through the thin walls like a rusty blade. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. He's out there playing with his toys again. Natalie's voice dripped with contempt. Honestly, what kind of man chooses grease over his own wife's birthday party? The laughter that followed made my jaw clench. I recognized every voice, her real estate friends, her yoga buddies, her book club that never read books. All of them gathered in my living room, drinking my beer, eating food I'd paid for while mocking the man who made it all possible. I'm Brad Mitchell, 38 years old, and I fix things for a living. HVAC systems, car engines, broken appliances, you name it, I can probably get it running again. Too bad marriages don't come with repair manuals. Brad's always been practical, came another voice. Jessa, Natalie's best friend since college. The way she said practical made it sound like a disease. Some women need more excitement, you know. More laughter. I tightened my grip on the wrench until my knuckles went white. Natalie and I had been married for 8 years. We met when she was a struggling real estate agent working out of a strip mall office, and I was building my HVAC business from nothing. Back then, she appreciated my work ethic. Back then, she didn't mind that I came home with dirt under my fingernails. Things changed when her career took off 3 years ago. Suddenly, she was selling million-dollar homes to tech executives and investment bankers. Suddenly, my blue-collar income wasn't impressive anymore. Suddenly, I was an embarrassment. I keep telling her she could do so much better, Jessa continued, her voice carrying clearly through the wall. There are plenty of successful men in this town who'd treat her like the queen she is. I slid out from under the Buick and stood up, wiping my hands on a shop rag. Through the small window that connected my garage to the kitchen, I could see them all gathered around the granite island I'd installed myself. Natalie held court in the center, her blonde hair perfectly styled, her designer dress probably costing more than most people made in a week. She caught sight of me through the window, and her expression shifted to practiced concern. "Ladies, excuse me for just a moment." The kitchen door opened, and there she was, my wife of 8 years, looking at me like I was something she'd scraped off her shoe. "Brad, honey," she said, her voice sickeningly sweet now that she was talking directly to me. "Why don't you come inside and say hello to everyone? It's my birthday, after all." I looked down at my work clothes, then back at her party dress. I'm not exactly dressed for the occasion. You could have showered and changed hours ago if you'd wanted to. Her mask slipped just slightly. But I suppose that old car is more important than your wife's special day. Mrs. Henderson needs her car tomorrow morning. She's got a doctor's appointment. Mrs. Henderson. Natalie rolled her eyes. You know what your problem is, Brad? You care more about other people's problems than your own family. Other people pay me to care about their problems. It's called having a job. A job. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. When was the last time you made real money? When was the last time you took me somewhere nice? When was the last time you did anything that didn't involve getting your hands dirty? I stared at her for a long moment. This woman who used to brag about my skills to her friends, who used to trace the calluses on my palms and call them proof of my dedication, who used to be proud that her husband could fix anything. You're right, I said quietly. She blinked, clearly not expecting that response. What? You're absolutely right. I should come inside and join the party. I set down my wrench and headed for the door that led into the house. Let's go celebrate. Natalie followed me, confusion written across her face. I walked into the living room, where her friends were clustered around the coffee table, wine glasses in hand, conversation stopping as I entered. Ladies, I announced, spreading my arms wide. Sorry to keep you waiting. I was just out in the garage playing with my toys. A few nervous laughs rippled through the group. Jessa raised an eyebrow, her phone already in her hand, probably ready to document whatever came next for her social media followers. Brad, Natalie hissed behind me. What are you doing? I'm joining the conversation, I said cheerfully. I heard you all discussing my career choices, my lack of ambition, my preference for Greece over good company. I looked around the room, meeting each pair of eyes. And you know what? You're absolutely right. The room went silent. I am exactly what you think I am, I continued, my voice steady and calm. I'm a blue-collar guy who works with his hands. I fix things that are broken. I solve problems that other people can't figure out. I paused, letting that sink in. And apparently that makes me a disappointment to my wife. Brad, stop, Natalie whispered, her face flushing red. No, honey, it's fine. Your friends deserve to know the truth. I turned to face her directly. The truth is, I've been trying to be something I'm not for years now. Trying to impress people who look down on honest work. Trying to make enough money to keep up with your new lifestyle. Trying to be the kind of husband who deserves a woman like you. Jessa's phone was definitely recording now. I could see the red dot on her screen. But here's what I've realized, I said, my voice dropping to barely above a whisper. I don't want to be that guy anymore. I don't want to apologize for who I am. And I sure as hell don't want to be married to someone who's ashamed of me. The silence stretched out like a taut wire. Natalie's friends looked like they were watching a car crash in slow motion, horrified but unable to look away. So you're right, Natalie. You could do better. You deserve someone who fits into your world. I headed toward the front door, grabbing my keys from the hook. I'll be at Marty's if you need me. Don't wait up. I walked out of my own house, leaving behind 8 years of marriage and a room full of people who'd just witnessed its end. Behind me, I could hear Natalie's voice, high and panicked. Brad, get back here. You can't just... But I could, and I did. Marty's Tap House sat on the edge of downtown, squeezed between a pawn shop and a Chinese restaurant that had been closed for 3 years. It was the kind of place where the beer was cold, the music was loud enough to think, but not loud enough to give you a headache, and nobody asked questions they didn't want answered. Martin Torres had been my friend since high school. While I went into the trades and Natalie climbed the real estate ladder, Marty bought a failing bar and turned it into the unofficial headquarters for everyone in town who worked for a living. Cops, firefighters, construction workers, mechanics. If you punched a time clock and earned your money with sweat, Marty's was your place. I found him behind the bar, polishing glasses and watching a baseball game on the ancient TV mounted in the corner. He took one look at my face and reached for a bottle of whiskey. That bad? He asked, pouring 2 fingers into a glass. Worse. I took the drink and knocked it back in one swallow. I think I just ended my marriage. About damn time. Marty poured another. That woman's been treating you like dirt for years. Yeah, well, apparently everyone in town knows it but me. Not everyone. He leaned against the bar, his expression serious. The people who matter know exactly who you are, Brad. You're the guy who fixed my walk-in cooler at 2 a.m. when it broke down on the busiest Saturday of the year. You're the guy who installed a new furnace for the Hendersons and only charged them for parts because you knew they were on a fixed income. You're the guy who... I'm the guy whose wife is probably filing for divorce right now. I stared into my glass. And you know what the worst part is? I'm not even sure I care anymore. Marty was quiet for a moment, then reached under the bar and pulled out his phone. You might want to see this. The screen showed Jessa's Instagram story. There I was, in my work clothes, standing in my living room with my arms spread wide. The caption read, "When your friend's husband finally shows his true colors." Toxic masculinity, or red flags. Praying for her. She posted this 20 minutes ago, Marty said. It's already got over 100 views. I watched the short video clip, me saying, "I don't want to be married to someone who's ashamed of me," and walking out. But somehow, the way it was edited, the context was completely missing. I looked like an angry, unstable man having a breakdown. "There's more," Marty said grimly. He swiped to the next story. This one was just text. "Some men can't handle strong, successful women. Thank God my girl is finally seeing him for who he really is." My phone buzzed. A text from Natalie. "Come home, we need to talk." I deleted it without responding. "So what's the plan?" Marty asked. "Plan? Come on, Brad, I've known you since we were 17. You don't do anything without a plan." He refilled my glass. "And right now, you've got that look in your eyes. The same look you had senior year when Tommy Briggs kept picking on that freshman kid." I remembered Tommy Briggs. Star quarterback, rich parents, thought he owned the school. He made the mistake of shoving a scrawny kid named Danny into a locker one too many times. I didn't fight him. That would have been stupid. Instead, I waited. I watched. I learned his patterns. Then, on homecoming night, I made sure everyone in school saw him throw up all over his date's dress after someone slipped a powerful laxative into his pre-game protein shake. He never figured out who did it, but he never picked on anyone smaller than him again. "I don't know what you're talking about," I said, but Marty just grinned. "Sure you don't? Just remember, whatever you're planning, make sure you can live with it afterward." I finished my drink and stood up. "Thanks for the advice, Marty, and the whiskey." "Anytime, brother. Just be careful, okay? That woman's got claws, and she knows how to use them." I drove home slowly, taking the long way through neighborhoods I'd worked in over the years. Houses where I'd installed new air conditioning systems, repaired broken water heaters, fixed electrical problems that other contractors couldn't figure out. Each one represented a job well done, a customer satisfied, a problem solved. By the time I pulled into my driveway, all the cars were gone. The house was dark except for the porch light and a single lamp in the living room. I sat in my truck for a moment, looking at the place I'd called home for 8 years. I'd bought this house as a fixer-upper when Natalie and I first got married. Spent 2 years of weekends and evenings bringing it back to life. New roof, updated electrical, modern plumbing, refinished hardwood floors. I'd done most of the work myself, and what I couldn't do, I'd traded favors with other contractors to get done. Natalie used to love telling people how talented her husband was, how he'd transformed a rundown house into their dream home. But somewhere along the way, it stopped being our house and started being her house. The house where she entertained her successful friends. The house that was featured in the local real estate magazine as an example of vintage charm meets modern luxury. The house that was about to become a battlefield. I found Natalie in the kitchen, still wearing her party dress but with her makeup smudged and her hair disheveled. She looked up when I walked in, her eyes red from crying. "We need to talk," she said. I figured. I grabbed a beer from the refrigerator and leaned against the counter. "Talk. What you did tonight was completely inappropriate. Embarrassing me in front of my friends, walking out on my birthday party. Your friends were already embarrassed by me, Natalie. I just gave them something real to talk about." She stood up, her hands shaking slightly. "Do you have any idea what you've done? Jessa posted that video. It's everywhere. People are calling you unstable. They're saying I should leave you." Maybe they're right. The words hung in the air between us like a challenge. Natalie stared at me, her mouth opening and closing without sound. "You don't mean that," she finally whispered. "Don't I?" I took a long pull from my beer. "When was the last time you were happy to see me, Natalie? When was the last time you introduced me to someone without that little apologetic smile? When was the last time you acted like you were proud to be my wife? That's not fair. It's a simple question. When?" She looked away, and I had my answer. "I work 60 hours a week to keep this house, to pay for your car, to make sure you can afford those designer clothes and expensive dinners with your friends, and in return I get treated like the hired help. I set down my beer and walked toward the stairs. I'm tired, Natalie. I'm going to bed. Brad, wait. Her voice was small now, vulnerable. We can work this out. We can go to counseling. We can... Can what? Can you learn to respect the man you married? Can you stop being ashamed of how I make a living? I paused at the bottom of the stairs. Because if the answer is no, then there's nothing to work out. I went upstairs to our bedroom and found that she'd already moved my pillow and blanket to the guest room. Even in crisis, Natalie was efficient. I lay awake for hours that night, staring at the ceiling and listening to the sounds of the house I'd rebuilt with my own hands. The subtle creak of the hardwood floors as they settled. The quiet hum of the HVAC system I'd installed and maintained. The almost inaudible whisper of wind through the new windows I'd put in last spring. This house was my masterpiece, the physical manifestation of everything I was good at. But it was also my prison, the place where I'd slowly lost myself trying to be someone else. My phone buzzed with notifications throughout the night. Text messages, social media mentions, missed calls. By morning, half the town would know that Brad Mitchell had finally snapped. They had no idea what snapping actually looked like. I woke up to 17 missed calls, 43 text messages, and the sound of Natalie's voice drifting up from the kitchen. She was on the phone, her tone that special blend of victim and martyr she'd perfected over the years. I just don't know what to do, Mom. He's never acted like this before. So angry, so volatile. A pause. No, I don't think I'm in physical danger, but emotionally, I feel like I don't even know him anymore. I checked my phone while she performed for her audience. Most of the messages were from numbers I didn't recognize, people who'd seen Jessa's video and felt compelled to share their opinions about my character, my marriage, and my apparent mental instability. But buried among the hate mail was a text from my brother Danny in Phoenix. Saw the video. About time you stood up for yourself. Call me if you need anything. And another from Mrs. Henderson. Don't you worry about what those people are saying, dear. Your work speaks louder than their words. And surprisingly, one from Mike Kowalski, who ran the auto parts store. That video made you look like a hero to every married guy in town. Hang in there. I got dressed and headed downstairs. Natalie was still on the phone, but she quickly ended the call when she saw me. That was my mother, she said, as if I hadn't been listening. She's very concerned about your behavior last night. I'm sure she is. I poured coffee into a travel mug. Tell her I said hello. Where are you going? To work. Some of us have jobs that require showing up. Brad, please, can't we just talk about this like adults? I turned to face her, taking in the carefully applied makeup that couldn't quite hide the bags under her eyes, the designer robe that probably cost more than most people's car payments, the expression of wounded innocence she wore like a mask. Adults, Natalie? Like the adult conversation you were having with your friends last night about what a disappointment I am? Like the adult way Jessa posted a video of our private moment for the whole world to see? She was just trying to support me. She was trying to humiliate me, and you let her. I grabbed my keys. I'll be home around 6. Try not to schedule any more character assassination sessions while I'm gone. The drive to my first job took me through the center of town, past the coffee shop where Natalie used to meet her friends, past the bank where I'd gotten the loan to start my business, past the high school where Marty and I had spent 4 years planning our escape to bigger and better things. Funny how life works out. Marty never left town, but found contentment in his little bar. I never left either, but spent years feeling like I was trapped in someone else's life. My first appointment was at the Hendersons' house, a modest ranch in one of the older neighborhoods where the lawns were small but well-maintained, and everyone knew their neighbors' names. Mrs. Henderson met me at the door with a plate of homemade cookies and a worried expression. Oh, Brad, I saw that awful video online. I hope you know that not everyone believes what they're saying about you. Thank you, Mrs. Henderson. I appreciate that. I took the cookies gratefully. How's the Buick running? Like a dream, thanks to you. I don't know what I would have done if I'd missed my appointment yesterday. She lowered her voice conspiratorially. Dr. Martinez says the test results look good. No cancer. That's wonderful news. It is, and it's all thanks to you making sure I could get there. She patted my arm. Your wife doesn't know how lucky she is. If only that were true. The rest of the morning was a blur of routine service calls. A clogged drain at the Kowalski's house, a malfunctioning thermostat at the elementary school, a broken garbage disposal at the diner on Main Street. Normal problems with normal solutions, the kind of work that used to give me satisfaction. But today, every job felt different. Every customer had seen the video. Some were sympathetic, others curious, a few openly hostile. The diner owner, Janet, made a point of standing over me while I worked, as if I might suddenly become violent and attack her kitchen appliances. You know, she said, arms crossed, a man who can't control his temper at home probably shouldn't be trusted with other people's property. I looked up from the disposal, my hands covered in grease and food debris. You're absolutely right, Janet. A man who loses control is dangerous. I wiped my hands on a shop rag. Good thing I've never lost control in my life. That video says otherwise. That video shows a man walking away from a fight instead of starting one. But I guess people see what they want to see. I finished the job in silence, collected my payment, and left. In the parking lot, I sat in my truck for a moment, trying to process what was happening to my life. My phone rang. Natalie. Brad, thank God I've been trying to reach you. I've been working. What's wrong? It's getting worse. The video has been shared over 1,000 times. People are calling the house, leaving messages. Some woman called me a fool for staying married to an obviously abusive man. Are you okay? No, I'm not okay. This is ruining my reputation, my career, everything I've worked for. Her voice was rising, becoming shrill. You need to fix this. Fix it how? I don't know. Make a statement. Apologize. Something. Apologize for what exactly? For telling the truth? For walking away instead of fighting? For embarrassing me? There it was. Not concern for my well-being or our marriage. Just embarrassment that her carefully constructed image was cracking. I'll see you at home, I said, and hung up. My phone immediately rang again. I let it go to voicemail. Then it rang again, and again. I turned it off. The afternoon brought more of the same. Customers who treated me like a ticking time bomb, neighbors who whispered behind my back, strangers who felt entitled to comment on my personal life based on 30 seconds of edited video. By 5 o'clock, I was done. Not just with the day, but with all of it. The apologizing, the explaining, the trying to make everyone else comfortable with who I was. I drove to Marty's instead of going home. The bar was busier than usual for a Wednesday afternoon. Word had spread through the blue-collar network, and it seemed like every tradesman in town had decided to show their support by drinking beer and talking loudly about their own marital problems. There he is, someone called out as I walked in. The man who said what we're all thinking. A cheer went up from the crowd. Marty grinned and started pouring my usual. You're famous, brother, he said, sliding the glass across the bar. That video's been shared in every construction group, mechanic forum, and union chat I know of. You're a folk hero. A folk hero whose wife wants him to apologize for existing. Screw that, said Pete Kowalski, Mike's younger brother who worked construction. My wife saw that video and said it was about time someone stood up to those country club bitches. More agreement from the crowd. Stories started flowing. Everyone had a tale about being looked down on by their spouse's friends, being treated like they weren't good enough, being made to feel ashamed of honest work. For the first time in months, I felt like I belonged somewhere. The thing is, said Tony Martinez, who ran a plumbing business, women like that don't understand what we do. They see the dirty clothes and think that's all we are. They don't see the skill, the problem-solving, the satisfaction of fixing something that's broken. They don't want to see it. added Frank Chen, an electrician. They want us to be something we're not. Then they get mad when we can't be their fantasy version of a husband. So what do? I asked. How do you deal with it? The bar went quiet for a moment. Then Frank spoke up. You stop trying to be what they want. You be who you are, and if they don't like it, that's their problem. Easy to say, I replied. Harder to live with the consequences. What consequences? Pete asked. Divorce? Brother, there are worse things than being divorced, like being married to someone who hates you. My phone had been buzzing in my pocket for the past hour. I finally turned it back on and found 27 missed calls from Natalie, 6 from her mother, and 3 from numbers I didn't recognize. The voicemails were increasingly frantic. Brad, where are you? Call me back. Brad, this is serious. I need you to come home right now. Brad, I'm scared. There are people outside the house. Please come home. The last one was from 2 hours ago. I checked the time, almost 8 o'clock. I'd been at the bar longer than I thought. I have to go, I told Marty. Want backup? Pete offered. Some of us could follow you home, make sure everything's okay. Thanks, but no. This is my mess to clean up. The drive home took 10 minutes, but it felt like an hour. I turned onto my street to find 3 news vans parked along the curb and a small crowd of people with cameras and phones gathered on the sidewalk across from my house. A reporter I recognized from the local TV station spotted my truck and came running over with her cameraman in tow. Mr. Mitchell! Mr. Mitchell! Can you comment on the allegations that you're emotionally abusive to your wife? I rolled up my window and pulled into my driveway, but they followed, shouting questions and filming everything. Is it true that you've been violent in the past? How do you respond to people calling you a threat to women? Will you be seeking anger management counseling? I made it to my front door without responding to any of them, but I could hear the cameras clicking and the video rolling. Tomorrow, there would be footage of me looking angry and defensive, refusing to answer questions about my character. I found Natalie in the living room peeking through the curtains at the circus outside. Thank God you're here, she said, rushing over to me. This is insane. They've been out there for hours, knocking on the door, asking the neighbors questions about us. What kind of questions? About our marriage, about you, whether I've ever seemed afraid or had unexplained injuries. She was shaking. Brad, they think you hit me. Do you think I hit you? She stared at me for a long moment. No, of course not. You've never even raised your voice to me before last night. Then tell them that. I can't. If I go out there and defend you, it'll look like I'm making excuses for an abuser. But if I don't say anything, people will assume the worst. So what do you want to do? I want this to go away. I want our life to go back to normal. She grabbed my hands. Please, Brad. Can't you just apologize? Say you were having a bad day, that you didn't mean it? I looked at my wife, this woman I'd loved for 8 years, who I'd worked myself to exhaustion trying to please, and realized that she still didn't understand what had happened last night. She didn't see it as me finally standing up for myself. She saw it as a temporary malfunction that could be fixed with the right words, the right apology, the right amount of groveling. No, I said quietly. What? No. I won't apologize for telling the truth. I won't pretend that everything is fine when it's not. And I won't go back to being your embarrassing secret. Brad, please. I'm going to bed, in the guest room, since that's apparently where I live now. I headed for the stairs. Turn off the porch light. Maybe they'll get bored and leave. You can't just walk away from this. I paused on the stairs and looked back at her. Watch me. Upstairs, I could hear the crowd outside growing larger. Car doors slamming, voices calling out, the occasional flash of a camera. Through the guest room window, I could see people setting up lawn chairs across the street, like they were waiting for a parade. My phone rang. Jessa. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Brad, oh my God, are you okay? I just saw the news. Did you? This is so crazy. I never imagined that little video would blow up like this. She sounded breathless, excited. I mean, I knew it would get some attention, but this is incredible. Incredible. You should see my follower count. I've gained 3,000 people since yesterday. Everyone wants to know more about the story, about Natalie, about what really happened. And you're happy to tell them. Well, I mean, people deserve to know the truth, right? About what kind of man you really are. There it was. The real Jessa, the one who'd been hiding behind fake concern and crocodile tears. The one who'd turned my marriage into content for her social media empire. What kind of man am I, Jessa? You know what kind. The kind who can't handle his wife's success. The kind who gets violent when he doesn't get his way. I walked away from a fight. How is that violent? Please, everyone saw how angry you were, how aggressive. Poor Natalie was terrified. Natalie was embarrassed. There's a difference. Is there? Because from where I was sitting, it looked like a man on the edge of losing control. And now, with all this media attention, everyone can see what I've been trying to tell her for years. Which is? That she deserves better than a blue-collar loser who can't provide for her properly. The line went quiet. I could hear her breathing, waiting for me to explode, to give her more content for her followers. Instead, I laughed. You know what, Jessa? You're absolutely right. She does deserve better. She deserves someone who fits into her world, someone who won't embarrass her at parties or make her friends uncomfortable. What? She deserves someone like Derek. The silence stretched out for so long, I thought she'd hung up. Who's Derek? She finally asked, but her voice had changed, less confident, more careful. Good question. I was hoping you could tell me. I kept my voice light, conversational. He seems to know Natalie pretty well. Texts her a lot. Takes her to nice restaurants. Even has a key to that little apartment on Elm Street where they meet every Tuesday and Thursday. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you do. You're the one who introduced them, after all. At that gym where he works. What's it called? Peak Fitness. Brad, I think you're having some kind of breakdown. Am I? Or am I just finally paying attention? I walked to the window and looked down at the crowd outside. You know what's funny, Jessa? All this time you've been painting me as the villain in this story. The angry husband who can't appreciate his successful wife. But the real story is so much more interesting. I'm hanging up now. Give Derek my regards, I said, but she was already gone. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at my phone. 3 years of marriage counseling, 3 years of trying to figure out why Natalie had grown so distant, so critical, so unhappy with everything about our life together. 3 years of thinking it was my fault. But it wasn't about my job or my income or my failure to fit into her social circle. It was about Derek, whoever he was. And it was about Jessa, the best friend who'd been orchestrating the whole thing from the beginning. I opened my laptop and did what I should have done years ago. I started paying attention. Derek Morrison, personal trainer at Peak Fitness. 29 years old, never married, drove a leased BMW and lived in a luxury apartment complex on the good side of town. His social media was full of shirtless gym selfies, inspirational quotes about success and ambition, and photos of expensive dinners at restaurants I couldn't afford. And there, buried among the protein shake ads and workout videos, were photos that sent a chill through me. Derek at the wine festival last spring. In the background, barely visible, Natalie's blonde hair and distinctive laugh. Derek at the charity auction in June. 2 tables over, Natalie bidding on a weekend getaway that she'd later told me was for work. Derek at the Labor Day barbecue that Jessa had hosted. Standing next to my wife, both of them looking very comfortable with each other. I scrolled back through 3 years of posts, finding my wife in the background of this stranger's life. Always just out of focus, always with a plausible explanation, always invisible to a husband who trusted his wife and her best friend. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Stop digging or you'll regret it. I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, "Who is this?" No response. Another text appeared. "Some things are better left alone." This time I called the number. It went straight to voicemail, a generic recording, no name. I walked to the window and looked down at the media circus in my front yard. Tomorrow, they'd be gone, chasing some other story. But the real story, the one about betrayal and manipulation and 3 years of lies, that story was just getting started. My phone rang. Natalie. "The reporters are asking about Derek," she said without preamble. "Are they?" Someone gave them his name. "They're asking if I'm having an affair." Her voice was tight with panic. "Brad, you have to help me. You have to tell them it's not true." "Is it true?" Silence. "Natalie, is it true?" It's complicated." "No, it's not. It's actually very simple. Are you having an affair with Derek Morrison?" More silence. Then, quietly, "Yes." The word hung in the air between us like a final judgment. 3 years of doubt. 3 years of thinking I was the problem. 3 years of trying to be a better husband to a woman who was already planning her exit. "How long?" I asked. "Brad, how long, Natalie?" 2 years. 2 years. Not a moment of weakness, not a mistake born of loneliness or frustration. 2 years of deliberate deception, of coming home to me after being with him, of making me feel like I was failing as a husband while she was falling in love with someone else. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I wanted to tell you, but..." "But what? But you were having too much fun making me feel like garbage? But it was easier to let me think I was the problem?" "It wasn't supposed to happen. I met him at Jessa's gym, and he was just so different from you. So ambitious, so focused on success. He understood my career in a way that you never could. And Jessa helped. She thought I deserved to be happy. So this was all planned. The parties where you humiliated me, the constant criticism, the way you made me feel like I wasn't good enough. All of it was designed to push me away so you could justify what you were already doing." "No, it wasn't like that." "Then what was it like, Natalie? Explain it to me." "I fell in love with him. I didn't mean to, but I did. And every day I stayed married to you felt like a lie. So you decided to make me the villain. Make it my fault that our marriage was failing. Make it easier to leave me for a younger man with a better body and a flashier lifestyle. Derek makes me feel alive again. He makes me feel like the woman I used to be before I got trapped in this small-town life with a man who has no ambition." Trapped. The word hit me like a physical blow. You felt trapped. Yes, trapped in this house, in this town, with someone who was content to fix other people's problems instead of building something bigger for himself. This house that I rebuilt with my own hands. This town where I've built a reputation as someone people can trust. This life that I thought we were building together. I wanted more, Brad. I wanted a partner who could match my success, who could give me the life I dreamed of. And Derek can do that? He's opening his own chain of fitness centers. He's got investors, business plans, real ambition. He's going places. With your money. What? Derek's broke, Natalie. I spent an hour looking into his finances. The BMW is leased, the apartment is month to month, and his gym is 3 months behind on rent. He's not a successful entrepreneur. He's a con artist, looking for someone to bankroll his dreams. That's not true. Check his credit report. Check his business license. Check the lawsuit from his previous investors who claim he embezzled $50,000 from their last venture. You're lying. I'm a lot of things, Natalie, but I'm not a liar, unlike some people in this conversation. The line went quiet, except for the sound of her breathing. "The reporters," she finally said. "What are we going to tell them?" "We're not going to tell them anything. You are going to figure out how to clean up the mess you made. I'm going to figure out how to rebuild my life without you in it." Brad, wait. But I was done waiting, done listening, done being the villain in someone else's story. I hung up and turned off my phone. Outside, the crowd was finally starting to thin out as the evening grew late and the story grew stale. Tomorrow I would start over. Tomorrow I would stop being the man who apologized for who he was and start being the man who made other people apologize for underestimating him. Tomorrow I would stop playing defense and start playing offense. But tonight, I sat in the darkness of the guest room in the house I'd built with my own hands, and I planned my next move. I woke up to silence. No reporters shouting questions, no cameras clicking, no crowd of curious neighbors treating my personal life like entertainment. Just the normal sounds of a Thursday morning, birds chirping, cars starting, the distant hum of the highway. The media circus had moved on to fresher scandal, leaving behind only a few scattered coffee cups and cigarette butts on my lawn as evidence of yesterday's chaos. My phone showed 47 new messages, but I ignored them all. Instead, I showered, dressed in my cleanest work clothes, and made coffee strong enough to wake the dead. Natalie was nowhere to be found. Her car was gone, her side of the closet looked like a tornado had hit it, and there was a note on the kitchen counter written in her precise handwriting. Gone to stay with my mother. Need time to think. Don't call me. I crumpled up the note and threw it in the trash. Then I retrieved it, smoothed it out, and tucked it into my wallet. Evidence. Everything was evidence now. My first stop was Peak Fitness, the upscale gym where Derek Morrison worked, and where my wife had apparently been working out more than just her cardiovascular system. The place was exactly what I'd expected. All chrome and mirrors and motivational posters featuring impossibly fit people doing impossible things. The membership fees posted by the front desk were more than most people spent on groceries in a month. Derek was easy to spot. 6'2", professionally tanned, wearing a tight black t-shirt that showed off muscles he'd probably spent more time building than I'd spent learning my trade. He was standing behind the juice bar, flirting with a woman in expensive workout clothes who was old enough to be his mother. I waited until she left, then approached the counter. Derek Morrison? He looked up, and I saw the exact moment when recognition hit. His smile faltered, his shoulders tensed, and his hand moved instinctively toward his phone. You're him, he said. The husband. I'm Brad Mitchell, and you're the man who's been sleeping with my wife. Look, man, I don't want any trouble. Neither do I. I just want to talk. He glanced around the gym, probably looking for backup or witnesses or an escape route. But it was mid-morning on a Thursday, and the place was nearly empty except for a few dedicated retirees on the treadmills. 5 minutes, I said. That's all I want. I don't think that's a good idea. I think it's a great idea. See, I've been doing some research on you, Derek. Very interesting reading. His face went pale under the artificial tan. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you do. Phoenix Fitness Solutions, your last business venture. The one that ended with you stealing $50,000 from your investors and disappearing in the middle of the night. That was a misunderstanding. Was it? Because the police report tells a different story. So does the civil lawsuit that's still pending. I leaned against the counter, keeping my voice conversational. Tell me, does Natalie know about your legal troubles? Does she know that her ambitious boyfriend is actually a con artist running from his past? You don't know anything about me. I know you're broke, I know you're desperate, and I know you saw my wife as a meal ticket out of whatever hole you've dug for yourself. I smiled pleasantly. The question is, what are we going to do about it? Derek's hand was definitely on his phone now. Are you threatening me? Not at all. I'm offering you a choice. I pulled out my own phone and showed him the screen, a draft email addressed to the local police department, the Better Business Bureau, and the state attorney general's office. I can send this information to the appropriate authorities and let them sort out your past indiscretions. Or what? Or you can disappear. Today. Pack up your things, get in that leased BMW, and drive away from my town, my wife, and my life. Forever. You can't make me leave. You're right, I can't. But I can make staying very uncomfortable for you. I gestured around the gym. Nice place. I bet the owner doesn't know he's employing a fugitive from justice. I bet the members don't know their personal trainer has a history of financial fraud. I bet your landlord doesn't know you're 3 months behind on rent. How did you... I'm good at finding information, Derek. It's a skill you develop when you spend your life solving problems. I put my phone away. So what's it going to be? He stared at me for a long moment, probably trying to decide if I was bluffing. Then he seemed to deflate, his carefully maintained facade cracking like cheap paint. She said she was going to leave you, he said quietly. She said you were holding her back, that she wanted a real man who could give her a real life. And you believed her. Why wouldn't I? Look at you. He gestured dismissively. Blue-collar worker, small-town nobody. What could you possibly offer a woman like Natalie? Apparently, more than you can. She loves me. She loves the idea of you, the successful businessman, the ambitious entrepreneur, the man who was going to take her away from her boring life. I shook my head. But that man doesn't exist, does he? You're just another loser looking for an easy mark. Screw you. No, Derek, screw you. You came into my town, seduced my wife, and helped destroy my marriage based on a lie. You made her think she was trading up when she was actually trading down. I leaned closer. The difference is I earned everything I have. My house, my business, my reputation. I built it all with my own hands. You're a parasite. Your wife doesn't think so. My wife is about to find out the truth about you, and when she does, she's going to realize that she threw away 8 years of marriage for a fantasy. I straightened up. The question is, do you want to be here when that happens? Derek looked around the gym one more time, then back at me. Whatever he saw in my face made his decision for him. I need 3 days to get my affairs in order. You have 24 hours. That's not enough time. Then you better start packing. I turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Derek, if you contact my wife, if you try to convince her to go with you, if you do anything other than disappear quietly, I will destroy you. Not physically, I'm not that kind of man. But financially, legally, socially, I will make sure everyone in this town knows exactly what you are. You can't. I can. And I will. Because unlike you, I keep my promises. I left him standing behind the juice bar, his perfect world crumbling around him like a house of cards in a hurricane. My next stop was Jessa's apartment, a trendy loft in the converted warehouse district where young professionals went to pretend they were living in a real city. The building had a doorman and everything, as if this sleepy Midwestern town was suddenly Manhattan. Jessa wasn't hard to find. According to her social media, she was hosting a crisis support session for women dealing with toxic masculinity and emotional abuse. Apparently, my marriage had become a teaching moment for her followers. I waited across the street until I saw her guests leaving, then made my way upstairs. She answered the door in yoga pants and an oversized sweater, her phone already in her hand, probably ready to document whatever happened next. Brad. She tried to look surprised, but I could see the calculation in her eyes. What are you doing here? We need to talk. I don't think that's appropriate, especially after your episode the other night. My episode? I laughed. Is that what we're calling it? A man finding out his wife is cheating on him and his best friend is helping her do it? I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you do. You introduced them. You provided alibis. You helped Natalie sneak around behind my back for 2 years while making me think I was the problem. I pushed past her into the apartment. Very clever, Jessa. Very well orchestrated. You need to leave. In a minute. First, I want to understand something. Why? Why what? Why did you do it? What did I ever do to you that made you want to destroy my marriage? She closed the door and leaned against it, her expression shifting from fake concern to something harder, more honest. You really don't remember, do you? Remember what? 3 years ago, the Henderson account. I stared at her, trying to place the reference. Then it hit me. 3 years ago, Mrs. Henderson had been looking to downsize after her husband faded. She'd asked me to recommend a real estate agent, and I'd suggested Natalie, naturally. But when I'd looked into the property values in Mrs. Henderson's neighborhood, I'd discovered something troubling. Jessa had been running a side business, buying properties from elderly clients at below-market prices, then flipping them for huge profits. It was legal, technically, but it was also predatory. She was taking advantage of people who trusted her, people who didn't understand the real value of their homes. I'd warned Mrs. Henderson, and she'd decided not to sell. I'd also reported Jessa to the State Real Estate Commission for unethical practices. You cost me $100,000, Jessa said quietly. That house was my retirement fund. You were stealing from an old woman. I was conducting business, legal business. Legal doesn't mean ethical. Ethics don't pay the bills, Brad, but I guess someone like you wouldn't understand that. Someone like me? Someone who's content to stay small, to never take risks, to never want anything more than a modest life in a modest town. Her voice was rising now, years of resentment spilling out. Do you know what it's like to have ambition in a place like this? To want something bigger than fixing broken appliances and gossiping at the local bar? So you decided to get revenge by destroying my marriage. I decided to help my friend realize she deserved better than a man who would sabotage her best friend's career out of jealousy. Jealousy? You couldn't stand that Natalie was successful, that she was making real money while you were still crawling around in basements and attics, so you took it out on me. I took it out on you because you were a predator. I was an entrepreneur. You were a thief with a real estate license. She pulled out her phone and started typing. I'm calling the police. You're trespassing, and I feel threatened. Go ahead. Call them. I'm sure they'd be interested to hear about your role in this whole situation, about how you've been manipulating evidence, staging confrontations, and using your social media platform to destroy someone's reputation. I documented abuse. I protected my friend. You created content. You turned my personal life into entertainment for your followers. I pulled out my own phone and showed her a screenshot. 15,000 new followers since Tuesday. How much is that worth in advertising revenue, Jessa? Her finger paused over her phone screen. That's what this is really about, isn't it? Not revenge, not protecting Natalie, not even helping Derek. It's about building your brand, creating drama you can monetize. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? Let's see. You introduce Natalie to Derek, knowing he's exactly the kind of man who would appeal to her. You encourage the affair, provide cover stories, help them meet in secret. Then you spend 2 years subtly undermining her marriage, making her feel like she's settling for less than she deserves. Natalie made her own choices. Choices you influenced. Choices you shaped. Choices you documented every step of the way. I gestured around her apartment, taking in the ring lights and camera equipment, the backdrop set up in one corner for filming content. This whole thing has been one long social media campaign, hasn't it? The unhappy wife, the controlling husband, the dramatic confrontation, the brave friend who speaks truth to power. You're paranoid. Am I? Or am I just finally paying attention? I walked to her computer, which was still open to her editing software. On the screen was a rough cut of a video titled, When Good Men Go Bad, a case study in domestic manipulation. Planning your next post? I asked. That's private property. Using footage of me without my consent. That's actually illegal, Jessa, as is defamation, harassment, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. You can't prove any of that. I can prove all of it. Text messages between you and Derek coordinating their meetings. Social media posts that show you knew about the affair months before I did. Bank records showing payments from Derek to your consulting business. Yes, I found those too. Her face went white. How did you? I told you. I'm good at solving problems, and you, Jessa, are a problem that needs solving. I closed her laptop and tucked it under my arm. What are you doing? Taking evidence. Don't worry. I'll make sure the authorities get copies of everything. You can't take my computer. Actually, I can. It contains evidence of crimes committed against me. I'm performing a citizen's arrest on this equipment. That's not how it works. Isn't it? I guess we'll find out. I headed for the door. Oh, and Jessa, you might want to call Derek. He's leaving town, and I don't think he's planning to take you with him. I left her standing in her apartment, probably already planning her next video. When abusers fight back, my terrifying encounter with a dangerous man. Let her post it. By the time she did, I'd have enough evidence to bury her in lawsuits. The drive home took me past the elementary school, where I'd fixed the thermostat yesterday, past the diner where Janet had treated me like a criminal, past the coffee shop where Natalie used to meet her friends to plan my humiliation. This town had been my whole world for 38 years. I'd grown up here, gone to school here, built my business here, gotten married here. I knew every street, every building, every family. But I was starting to realize I didn't know anything at all. How many people had known about the affair? How many had watched me play the fool while my wife and her friends laughed behind my back? How many had seen the videos, read the posts, participated in the destruction of my reputation? How many had enjoyed the show? My phone rang as I pulled into my driveway. Marty. Where the hell are you, man? I've been trying to reach you all morning. I've been busy. What's wrong? What's wrong? The whole damn town is talking about you. People are saying you threatened Derek Morrison at his gym, that you broke into Jess's apartment and stole her computer. I didn't break in. She let me in. That's not the story she's telling. She's saying you forced your way in, destroyed her property, and threatened to eliminate her. Of course she is. Brad, you need to be careful. These people are building a case against you, and every move you make is giving them ammunition. Let them build their case. I'm building one too. What are you talking about? I'm talking about 2 years of adultery, conspiracy, defamation, and fraud. I'm talking about a con artist who seduced my wife and a social media influencer who monetized my marriage. I parked in my garage and sat in the dark for a moment. I'm talking about fighting back. Fighting back how? By being better at this game than they are. Brad, listen to me. I know you're angry, and you have every right to be. But if you keep going down this path, you're going to end up in jail or worse. Worse than what, Marty? Worse than being humiliated in front of the whole town? Worse than having my marriage destroyed by people who think I'm too stupid to fight back? Worse than watching my wife choose a con artist over the man who built her a life with his own hands? Worse than becoming the kind of man who scares his friends? That stopped me cold. What? You're scaring me, Brad. This isn't you. This calculating, vengeful person. This isn't the man I've known for 20 years. Maybe the man you've known for 20 years was a fool. Maybe he was, but he was a good fool, a decent fool, a fool who helped his neighbors and fixed their problems and never asked for anything in return except a little respect. And look where it got me. It got you a reputation as someone people could trust. It got you a business built on integrity. It got you friends who would do anything for you. His voice softened. Don't throw that away for revenge, Brad. It's not worth it. I sat in the darkness of my garage, surrounded by the tools of my trade, thinking about what he'd said. Was I becoming someone I didn't recognize? Was I letting anger turn me into the villain they'd already painted me as? Or was I just finally becoming someone who refused to be a victim? I have to go, Marty. Brad, wait. I hung up and turned off my phone. Then I sat in my truck for a long time, listening to the silence and trying to decide who I wanted to be. The man who turned the other cheek, or the man who hit back twice as hard. The man who forgave, or the man who made sure forgiveness wasn't necessary because there was nothing left to forgive. The man who played by the rules, or the man who wrote his own. By the time I got out of the truck, I'd made my choice. Friday morning brought news that Derek Morrison had indeed left town, just as I'd suggested. His apartment was empty, his gym locker cleaned out, and his BMW was spotted heading east on the interstate around midnight. He'd left behind a mountain of unpaid bills, a furious landlord, and a very confused Natalie, who'd apparently been expecting him to whisk her away to their new life together. Instead, she was back at the house when I came home from my morning service calls, sitting at the kitchen table with red-rimmed eyes and yesterday's clothes. "He's gone," she said without looking up. I heard. "Did you know? When you came to see me Wednesday night, did you already know he was going to leave?" I poured myself coffee and leaned against the counter. "I knew he wasn't the man you thought he was. You drove him away. I gave him a choice. He made it." She finally looked at me, and I saw something I hadn't seen in years: vulnerability. The polished real estate agent facade was gone, replaced by a woman who looked lost and broken. "What did you tell him?" "The truth. About his past, his debts, his legal troubles. About the kind of man who seduces married women for money. He didn't seduce me for money. He loved me. He was broke, Natalie. Completely broke. His business was failing, he was behind on rent, and he had creditors looking for him in 3 states. I sat down across from her. He saw you as a solution to his problems. That's not true. Check his bank records. Check the payments he was receiving from your joint account, the one you thought was for business investments." Her face went pale. "How do you know about that?" "Because I've been paying attention. Something I should have done a long time ago." She was quiet for a moment, processing the implications. Then, "Even if that's true, it doesn't change how I felt about him, how I feel. Doesn't it? You fell in love with a successful entrepreneur who was going to give you the life you dreamed of. But that man never existed. You fell in love with a lie. And what about us? Was our marriage a lie too?" I considered the question seriously. "No, our marriage was real. Flawed, maybe. Unequal in some ways. But it was built on something solid." "Then why are you destroying it?" "I'm not destroying it, Natalie. You already did that. I'm just cleaning up the wreckage." She started crying then, not the pretty, delicate tears of a woman who knows she's being watched, but ugly, desperate sobs that shook her whole body. "I'm sorry," she gasped between sobs. "I'm so sorry, Brad. I never meant for it to go this far. I never meant to hurt you like this." "But you did mean to hurt me. Maybe not like this. But you meant to make me feel small, inadequate, like I wasn't good enough for you. You and Jessa spent 2 years systematically destroying my self-confidence so you could justify what you were already doing." "That's not—" "It is, Natalie. Every party where you humiliated me, every comment about my job or my income or my lack of ambition, it was all designed to make me the villain so you could be the victim. I was confused. I was unhappy. I didn't know how to fix what was wrong with us. So you decided to break it completely instead." She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, smearing her makeup. "What happens now?" "Now you figure out what you want your life to look like without me in it. I want to fix this. I want to try again." "With what? Derek's gone, your reputation is in ruins, and half the town knows you've been cheating on your husband for 2 years. What exactly are we supposed to build a new marriage on? On the fact that we loved each other once, on 8 years of history, on the possibility that we can learn from our mistakes. I looked at this woman I'd married, this stranger who'd shared my bed and my life while planning her escape with another man, and tried to find some trace of the person I'd fallen in love with. Do you know what the worst part is? I said finally. What? It's not the cheating. It's not even the lies. It's the fact that you made me complicit in my own humiliation. You made me think I was failing you when you were the one who'd already given up on us. Brad, I spent 3 years trying to be a better husband, working longer hours to make more money, buying you expensive gifts I couldn't afford, trying to fit into your social circle, even though your friends treated me like hired help. I stood up and walked to the window. And all that time, you were with him, laughing about what a fool I was, planning your new life while I was desperately trying to save the old one. We never laughed about you, didn't you? What about the night you told him about my business troubles? What about when you shared intimate details about our marriage, our finances, our private moments? What about when Jessa posted that video and you did nothing to defend me? She was quiet for a long time. Then, so softly, I almost didn't hear her. I'm not proud of who I became. Neither am I. What do you mean? I turned back to face her. I mean, I've done things this week that the old Brad Mitchell never would have done. I've manipulated people, invaded their privacy, threatened their livelihoods. I've become someone I don't entirely recognize. So we're both different people now. The difference is, I became this person to survive what you did to me. You became who you are because you thought you deserved better than what we had. My phone rang. Jessa. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won out. You bastard, she said without preamble. You destroyed my computer. I copied your files. The computer is fine. You had no right. I had every right. You used that computer to orchestrate the destruction of my marriage and my reputation. Consider it evidence collection. I'm pressing charges. Good. I'm pressing charges too. Conspiracy, defamation, invasion of privacy, intentional infliction of emotional distress. Should I keep going? You can't prove any of that. Actually, I can. Your own files prove it. Text messages coordinating meetings between Natalie and Derek. Social media posts that show premeditation. Financial records showing payments for services rendered. I walked into the living room where Natalie couldn't hear me. But the best part is the video you were editing. The one where you admit the whole thing was planned from the beginning. Silence on the other end of the line. You recorded yourself, Jessa, talking about how you were going to teach that blue-collar bastard a lesson he'd never forget. How you were going to destroy him so completely that no one would ever take his side again. How you were going to make him famous for all the wrong reasons. That was taken out of context. Was it? Because the context seems pretty clear to me. You orchestrated this entire situation for revenge and social media content, and you documented every step of the process. Even if that's true, you still broke into my apartment and stole my property. I didn't break in. You let me in, and I didn't steal anything. I confiscated evidence of crimes committed against me. I sat down on the couch, suddenly exhausted. But you know what, Jessa? I don't want to fight with you anymore. I don't want to fight with anyone anymore. What? I'm tired. I'm tired of being angry, tired of plotting revenge, tired of trying to prove that I'm not the villain in this story. I looked toward the kitchen where Natalie was still sitting. You won. Congratulations. You destroyed my marriage, ruined my reputation, and turned me into someone I don't like very much. Mission accomplished. What are you saying? I'm saying I'm done. Keep your followers, keep your content, keep your narrative about the dangerous husband who couldn't handle his wife's success. I don't care anymore. You're giving up? I'm moving on. There's a difference. I hung up and turned off my phone. Then I went back to the kitchen where Natalie was still sitting at the table. That was Jessa, I said. I figured. What did she want? To gloat, probably. To make sure I knew how thoroughly she'd beaten me. And I realized something. This isn't about winning or losing anymore. It's about deciding what kind of person I want to be going forward. Natalie looked up at me with something that might have been hope. What kind of person do you want to be? Not the kind who destroys people for revenge. Not the kind who holds grudges until they poison everything good in his life. Not the kind who becomes the villain just to prove he's not a victim. So, what does that mean for us? I sat down across from her again, really looking at her for the first time in years. Seeing not the successful real estate agent or the unfaithful wife, or the woman who'd humiliated me in front of her friends, but the person I'd fallen in love with a decade ago. It means I forgive you, I said quietly. She started crying again, but these tears were different, cleaner somehow. It also means I can't be married to you anymore. Brad, I forgive you, Natalie, but I can't forget. Every time I look at you, I'll remember Derek. Every time you're late coming home, I'll wonder where you've been. Every time you smile at another man, I'll question whether it means something more. I reached across the table and took her hand. That's not fair to either of us. We could try counseling again. We could work through this. Could we? Could you honestly tell me you never think about him? That you don't wonder what your life would have been like if he'd been the man you thought he was? She was quiet for a long moment, then reluctantly, No, I can't tell you that. And I can't tell you that I'll ever trust you completely again. So where does that leave us? Getting divorced, I guess. Getting divorced. But not as enemies. Not with lawyers and accusations and fights over who gets what. Just as two people who loved each other once and made mistakes that can't be undone. She squeezed my hand. I did love you. I still do, in a way. I know. And I love you too, but love isn't always enough, is it? No. I guess it's not. We sat there in the kitchen of the house I'd rebuilt, holding hands across the table where we'd eaten 1,000 meals together and mourned the end of something that had been broken for longer than either of us wanted to admit. Outside, the world went on. Cars drove past on their way to important appointments. Children played in yards where their parents were still married. The sun shone on a town that would find new gossip to replace the story of Brad and Natalie Mitchell. And somewhere, Derek Morrison was driving toward a new town with new opportunities to reinvent himself as a successful entrepreneur looking for investors. Jessa was probably already planning her next social media campaign, turning our divorce into content about healing and moving forward after toxic relationships. But for the first time in weeks, I didn't care what they were doing. I was too busy figuring out what I was going to do next. The divorce papers were signed on a Tuesday morning in October, exactly 6 months after that birthday party that had started it all. We met at a lawyer's office downtown, both of us dressed like we were going to a funeral, which, in a way, we were. Natalie looked smaller somehow, diminished by the events of the past months. She'd lost her job at the real estate agency after the scandal, and the confident woman who'd once commanded rooms full of successful people had been replaced by someone who seemed uncertain about everything. The house, the lawyer said, consulting his notes. She can have it, I said. Natalie looked up, surprised. Brad, that's your life's work. You rebuilt that place from nothing. And now it's something you can sell to start over somewhere else. I signed the papers transferring my half of the property to her. I've already moved out anyway. I'd been living in a small apartment above Marty's bar for the past month, and I was surprised to find that I liked it. No maintenance, no yard work, no constant reminders of a life that no longer existed. Just a simple space where I could figure out who I was when I wasn't trying to be someone else's idea of a good husband. Your business, the lawyer continued. Mine, I said firmly. That was non-negotiable. I'd built Mitchell HVAC from nothing, and it was the one thing in my life that was entirely my own creation. The retirement accounts, we split them down the middle. Fair was fair. Alimony? None, Natalie said quietly. I don't want alimony. The lawyer looked surprised. In a case like this, with clear evidence of adultery, she could have asked for quite a bit. Are you sure? He asked. I'm sure. I caused this. I'm not going to profit from it. An hour later, it was over. 8 years of marriage dissolved into a stack of legal documents and a handshake in a parking lot. What will you do now? I asked as we stood beside our cars. I don't know. Maybe leave town. Start fresh somewhere else. You? Stay here, I think. This is still my home, whatever else has happened. Even after everything? Even with all the gossip and the stares and the people who think they know the whole story? Especially because of that. I'm not going to let other people's opinions drive me away from the life I've built. She smiled sadly. You always were braver than me. Not braver, just more stubborn. Brad, for what it's worth, I'm sorry. For all of it. I know. And for what it's worth, I hope you find what you're looking for. What if I already had it and was too stupid to realize it? Then you'll know better next time. She got in her car and drove away, and I watched her go without feeling much of anything. Not anger, not sadness, not regret. Just a kind of quiet acceptance that this chapter of my life was finally closed. That evening, Marty threw what he called a freedom party at the bar. It was supposed to be a celebration, but it felt more like a wake, a gathering of friends trying to pretend that divorce was something to be happy about. You're better off without her, Pete Kowalski said for the 10th time, raising his beer in a toast that nobody else joined. She never deserved you anyway, added Tony Martinez. Now you can find a woman who appreciates what she's got, Frank Chen chimed in. I listened to their well-meaning attempts to cheer me up and realized that they didn't understand what I was feeling. They expected me to be bitter, angry, ready to trash-talk my ex-wife and celebrate my newfound freedom. Instead, I felt empty. Not sad, exactly, but hollow. Like a house after all the furniture has been moved out. Still structurally sound, but missing the things that made it feel like home. You know what your problem is? Said a voice behind me. I turned to find Mrs. Henderson, of all people, sitting at the bar with a glass of wine that Marty had probably poured to be polite. What's my problem, Mrs. Henderson? You're too decent for your own good. Always have been. She took a sip of wine and made a face. Martin, this wine is terrible. Don't you have anything that doesn't taste like it came from a gas station? It did come from a gas station, Marty admitted. I'll get you a beer. Make it 2, one for me and one for Brad. He looks like he needs it. Marty brought us both bottles of beer, and Mrs. Henderson raised hers in a toast. To being too decent for your own good, she said. It's a rare quality these days. Is it a good quality, though? Maybe if I'd been less decent, less trusting, I would have seen what was happening sooner. And then what? You would have confronted them earlier, gotten divorced sooner, saved yourself a few months of pain? She shook her head. Brad, dear, the pain was always going to be the same. The only difference is timing. I don't know about that. I feel like I wasted years of my life trying to fix something that was already broken. Did you? Or did you spend years being the kind of husband you believed she deserved? The kind of man you wanted to be regardless of what she was doing? I thought about that. What's the difference? The difference is that one is about her and the other is about you. One makes you a victim and the other makes you a man who acted with integrity even when the person you loved didn't. I'm not sure integrity is worth much when it makes you a fool. Oh, my dear boy. She patted my hand with her weathered fingers. Integrity is the only thing that's worth anything. It's the only thing that's truly yours, that no one can take away from you unless you give it up. Even when it costs you everything? Especially then. Do you know why I trust you to work on my car, to fix my furnace, to come into my home when I'm not there? Because I do good work? Because you're the same man whether anyone's watching or not? Because your word means something? Because in a world full of people who will say anything to get what they want, you're someone who says what he means and means what he says. She finished her beer and stood up. Don't let what happened to your marriage change that, Brad. Don't let their choices turn you into someone you're not. What if I already have? What if I've already become someone I don't recognize? Have you? What did you do when you found out about the affair? I confronted Derek. I took Jessa's computer. I threatened to expose their secrets. And then? And then I stopped. I forgave Natalie. I let them go. Exactly. You got angry, which was appropriate, and then you chose to be better than your anger. That's not the behavior of someone who's lost his integrity. That's the behavior of someone who's found it. After she left, I sat at the bar for a long time, thinking about what she'd said. Around me, the usual crowd of blue-collar workers gradually thinned out as people headed home to their families, their problems, their own complicated lives. Last call, Marty announced, even though it was only 10 o'clock. Since when do you have last call at 10? Since my best friend looks like he's about to drink himself into a philosophical crisis. He poured himself a beer and came around to sit beside me. Talk to me, Brad. What's really going on in your head? I keep thinking about the man I was 6 months ago, before all this started. Was I happy then? Were you? I thought I was. But maybe I was just comfortable. Maybe I was sleepwalking through my life, going through the motions of being a husband without really thinking about whether I was married to the right person. And now? Now I'm awake, but I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that awareness. You could start by figuring out what you actually want instead of what you think you're supposed to want. What do you mean? I mean you spent 8 years trying to be the husband Natalie wanted instead of being the man Brad Mitchell is. Maybe it's time to figure out who that guy is when he's not trying to please anyone else. I looked around the bar, at the worn wooden tables, the neon beer signs, the dartboard with more holes than a piece of Swiss cheese. This place wasn't fancy or impressive or the kind of establishment that would impress Natalie's friends, but it was real. It was honest. It was a place where people came to be themselves without apology. You know what I want? I said finally. What? I want to stop explaining myself to people who've already made up their minds about me. I want to stop trying to prove that I'm not the villain in someone else's story. I want to do work that matters, with people who respect what I do, in a place where my word means something. Sounds like you want to be yourself. Yeah, I guess I do. So, what's stopping you? I thought about that question for a long time. What was stopping me? Fear of judgment? Concern about my reputation? Worry about what people would think? Or just habit? The habit of being smaller than I was, of apologizing for taking up space, of trying to make everyone else comfortable even when I wasn't? Nothing, I said finally. Nothing stopping me. The next morning, I did something I hadn't done in years. I made a list of everything I wanted to change about my life. The business was first. I'd been taking whatever jobs came my way, working for whatever people were willing to pay, trying to be all things to all customers. But some customers weren't worth having. Some jobs weren't worth doing. Some money wasn't worth earning. I started saying no. No to the customers who treated me like hired help. No to the jobs that didn't challenge me or use my skills. No to the people who wanted champagne service at beer prices. Within a month, my income had actually increased because I was focusing on the work I did best for the people who valued it most. The apartment above the bar was next. It had been fine as a temporary solution, but I was ready for something more permanent. I found a small house on the edge of town. Not as grand as the place I'd shared with Natalie, but solid and well-built with good bones and plenty of potential. I bought it with cash from my half of our shared assets and spent my weekends fixing it up. Not trying to impress anyone or create a showplace, just making it comfortable and functional and mine. The social life took longer to figure out. For months, I'd been defined by the scandal, by the divorce, by other people's opinions about what had happened to my marriage. I was either the victim who deserved sympathy or the villain who'd gotten what he deserved, depending on who was telling the story. But gradually, as the gossip faded and new scandals took its place, I found that most people had moved on. The customers who mattered still called when they needed work done. The friends who mattered still invited me to barbecues and poker games. The neighbors who mattered still waved when I drove past. The people who didn't matter, well, they didn't matter. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I was installing a new HVAC system in a house across town when I heard familiar laughter coming from the backyard. I looked out the window and saw Jessa hosting what appeared to be some kind of social media event. A dozen women in expensive workout clothes, all posing with green smoothies and inspirational quotes about living your best life. She looked older somehow, more brittle. The confidence that had once seemed so natural now appeared forced, performative. She was still beautiful, still successful by most measures, but there was something desperate about the way she commanded attention from her followers. I finished my work and was packing up my tools when she appeared in the doorway. "Brad." She seemed genuinely surprised to see me. "I didn't know you were here. Just finished installing your host's new air conditioning system. You should be more comfortable now." That's good." She looked around nervously, probably wondering if I was recording this conversation for my own social media revenge campaign. "How are you, Jessa?" I'm good. Great, actually. My following has grown to over 100,000. I'm launching a podcast next month about empowerment and overcoming toxic relationships." "That sounds like it'll be very successful." She stared at me, clearly confused by my lack of hostility. "You're not angry?" "About what?" "About everything. About what I did to your marriage. About the videos, the posts, the way I painted you as the villain." "Oh, that." I closed my toolbox and picked it up. "No, I'm not angry about that." "You're not?" "Why would I be angry about something that turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to me?" "The best thing?" "My marriage was broken, Jessa. Had been for years. You just helped me see it clearly enough to do something about it." I headed toward the door. "If anything, I should thank you." "You're thanking me?" "I'm thanking you for showing me who I really was and who I wanted to become. I'm thanking you for forcing me to stop settling for less than I deserved. I'm thanking you for helping me find my backbone." I paused at the door and looked back at her. "But mostly, I'm thanking you for teaching me the difference between being a good man and being a doormat. That's a lesson I'll carry with me for the rest of my life." I left her standing there, probably already planning how to turn our conversation into content about forgiveness and personal growth and the power of taking responsibility for your mistakes. But I didn't care what story she told about our encounter. I had my own story now, and it was a good one. It was the story of a man who'd lost everything he thought he wanted and discovered everything he actually needed. A man who'd been broken down and built himself back up, stronger and wiser and more himself than he'd ever been before. It was the story of a man who'd learned that the only person's opinion that really mattered was his own. And it was a story that was just getting started. 3 years later, I married Sarah Chen, Frank's younger sister who'd moved back to town after finishing her engineering degree. She was smart, funny, ambitious in her own right, and completely unimpressed by social media drama or small-town gossip. Our wedding was small, just family and close friends at Marty's bar, with Mrs. Henderson playing piano and everyone telling stories about the worst repair jobs they'd ever seen. Natalie had moved to California, where she'd started over as a property manager for a resort company. We exchanged Christmas cards sometimes, polite updates on our separate lives that proved we'd both moved on completely. Derek, according to the internet, was running a wellness retreat in Costa Rica that looked suspiciously like a pyramid scheme targeting wealthy American divorcees. Jessa's podcast had lasted 6 months before she'd moved on to selling essential oils and life coaching services. Her follower count had plateaued, and her engagement was dropping as people moved on to newer, more exciting influencers. But I didn't spend much time thinking about any of them anymore. I was too busy living my actual life, running a business I was proud of, married to a woman who appreciated me exactly as I was, raising the daughter we'd adopted from foster care. It was a good life, an honest life, a life built on solid foundations that could weather whatever storms came along. It was the life I'd always been meant to live once I stopped trying to be someone else. And every morning when I woke up next to Sarah, in the house I'd bought and renovated with my own hands, surrounded by the tools of a trade I'd mastered and the evidence of work well done, I remembered what Mrs. Henderson had told me that night at the bar. Integrity is the only thing that's truly yours. Everything else is just details.